What is up? What is up? YouTube, how y'all doing, man? Check this out, man. Let me know if you notice anything different in the studio. Hey, Clive Davis in total meltdown. 50 Cent reveals why Diddy snitched on him. Why did Diddy snitch on him? Did Diddy snitch on him? Because Clive ain't never come to no courtroom that long. Going to jail or anything. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Let's check it out.
Myself is concerned. I was totally straight until through my second marriage. I've got 4 kids and grandkids.
Second marriage, okay.
So these are fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
And you're sleeping in that light. What was the first night there?
First night was very intense. Again, I'm, coming down off drugs. And by that time, the second time I went in, between the 2 times I got in a terrible...
So, something's gone terribly wrong in Clive Davis's world. And almost nobody's talking about it publicly. At least not yet. The 93-year-old titan who once controlled the entire sound of pop music is now reportedly spiraling behind closed doors, deleting files, cutting off old friends, and threatening to cancel anyone who dares mention a certain name. That name, of course, is Diddy, his former golden boy, his rumored protégé, maybe even something more, who's now rotting in a Brooklyn cell and allegedly won't stop calling him. We're hearing whispers of panic at Clive's mansion, staff turnover, and a hush-hush emergency meeting that ended with one brutal order. Never say Diddy's name again. And the wild part? No one can agree on what Clive's really afraid of. A scandal, a secret, or a truth that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about the empire he built.
Are you concerned that Sean Diddy Combs could be assaulted, violently assaulted? Is that a thing? Because based on what was said in court, it feels like a thing.
Here's where the story turns from gossip to pure chaos. Sources close to Diddy's people claim that even behind bars, he's obsessed with reaching Clive. Every week, messages, letters, desperate calls. He wants favors. Some say he's begging for Clive to pull strings, maybe get him moved out of the so-called hell-on-earth prison in Brooklyn, maybe even get him closer to a cushier setup in Miami. The problem? Clive won't touch it. He's gone ghost, instructing everyone in his orbit to act like Diddy never existed.
Dang.
For a man who's navigated industry scandals since the 70s, this level of silence is louder than any denial. What's he hiding from? Because Diddy's anger is reportedly volcanic. He feels betrayed, insiders say. Betrayed by the man who helped him build his empire, who opened doors when hip-hop was still being laughed out of boardrooms. And now, after everything that's gone down, Diddy thinks that same man has slammed those doors in his face.
And Freed were in the unit that was 1 floor above mine. So in terms of like the setting, it's a fairly decent chance that the room I'm describing is similar to where Diddy is. Yeah.
And the timing couldn't be worse. Diddy's life has imploded spectacularly over the past year. The trial, the guilty verdict, the appeal, even that horrifying attack in his cell where another inmate reportedly held a knife to his throat. It's chaos every day inside those walls. He's gone from private jets to prison steel, and it's no wonder he's reaching out to anyone who ever owed him a favor. But here's the twist. Diddy doesn't reach out to just anyone. He's strategic, he's calculating, and if he's fixating on Clive Davis, it means he believes Clive has the power to actually change something. That's where it gets murky, because according to the chatter coming from inside Diddy's camp, he's saying things like, Clive owes me? Like there's some deal or secret that hasn't hit the light yet. Now, if this were just about business, royalties, label drama, who signed who, it would have faded down weeks ago. But there's a darker undercurrent to all of this, and it starts with Suge Knight. Out of nowhere, on his podcast of all places, Suge drops an atomic claim. That legendary producer Jimmy Iovine once told him Clive Davis and Diddy weren't just partners. They were lovers. Yeah, that word. Lovers. It's the kind of bomb that even the wildest gossip pages hesitate to print, but Suga doesn't do hesitation. He lays it out like a man who's seen too much and doesn't care anymore. We've all heard Suge throw wild accusations before, but this one hits different because it actually fits into the silence we've been seeing from Clive. Suddenly, that tight-lipped panic looks less like legal caution and more like damage control.
I could be attracted to a man, while I still am very attracted
To be fair, Clive has never been a stranger to complicated personal revelations. Years ago, he publicly came out as bisexual, writing about his experiences in his memoir, explaining that after decades of marriages to women, he had opened himself up to something new. At the time, it was hailed as brave, even progressive for a man of his era. But now, with Suga dragging old names and linking timelines, people are starting to revisit those details with new curiosity. Was Diddy one of those private relationships? Did that mentorship that created an empire also cross lines that both men swore would never be spoken about? We don't know. But we do know that Diddy's downfall has everyone in his old circle acting like they're waiting for the floor to open up beneath them.
That I have a very special connection with artists, with music. I certainly know I had it with him.
And remember, this isn't just anyone we're talking about. Clive Davis is the man who practically defined the sound of American pop. He's the reason we even know names like Whitney Houston, Alicia Keys, or even the notorious B.I.G. When Diddy was just 23, fresh from Uptown Records, and trying to prove that hip-hop wasn't just street noise, it was Clive who gave him the room to do it. On record, Clive's called that meeting life-changing. He said Diddy played him Craig Mack's Flava in Ya Ear, then cuts from a young Brooklyn rapper named Biggie, and that was it. Clive saw the future. He even admitted he let Diddy lead him to the street, a poetic way to say he let this brash kid redefine his legacy. That partnership was more than professional. It was symbiotic. And maybe, according to some, more personal than anyone ever realized. We all remember the optics from those early years. Clive at 60-something, sharply dressed, the ultimate music businessman. Diddy at 20-something, loud, charismatic, the golden boy of hip-hop. Together they blurred the line between Wall Street and Harlem, making millions while the industry watched. Diddy called him his mentor, his friend, even his music father. But behind that perfect image, people now wonder if there was a deal too personal to name, a power exchange that made both men untouchable. If Suge Knight's story is even half true, that would explain why Clive's distancing act now feels so panicked. It's not about Diddy's crimes. It's about history coming back for him.
To get out in front of this and, try to persuade Netflix not to come forward with it. I think it's an interesting argument because what they're claiming is, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, has had a long-standing, animosity against Diddy and sort of vice versa. And because he's at the helm, they're arguing this can't be taken seriously. This should sort of be seen as propaganda. And one of the things that Netflix hit back with was, yes, he's the executive producer. He doesn't necessarily have creative control. And that's something we...
Think about the pattern. When Diddy was first hit with the wave of lawsuits, more than 100 people coming forward with stories about his dark habits and freak-off parties, Clive stayed quiet. No statements, no support, not even a no comment. Then, when Diddy was convicted on those 2 counts of transportation for adult services, a sanitized legal phrase for something much uglier, there was still silence. But right before the trial, insiders noticed something odd. Diddy's usual spot at Clive's annual pre-Grammy party, the event that defines industry hierarchy, was suddenly erased. He used to be the guest of honor, his photos plastered across invitations, always front and center. This year, he was barely visible, cropped into a background shot behind Jay-Z and Beyonce. The official rep said it was nothing, just new photos for a new year. But come on. In this business, symbolism is everything, and that was a scrub if we've ever seen one. Now fast forward to the present. Diddy sitting in the infamous Brooklyn Detention Center, the same one that held R. Kelly and Ghislaine Maxwell, described by insiders as hell on earth. The stories coming out are grim. He's been attacked, humiliated, reduced to a number. He even sold his matte black private jet, the same one he used to parade on Instagram 6 months after his conviction. It's gone, registered now under some San Marino company. From $30 million flights to 8x10 steel cells. And through it all, he keeps trying to reach Clive. Insiders say he believes Clive could still help, maybe whisper something to the right people, maybe even get a sympathetic ear in Washington. The irony? Diddy already tried that route. He wrote directly to President Trump, begging for a pardon. Trump himself confirmed it, saying Diddy sent him a letter but that he had no plans to help. If the man who once called you a friend won't lift a finger, maybe Clive was supposed to be plan B. So why is Clive paying?
My bad, y'all. That one line right there made it worth doing this video because Trump said, I had no... What'd she say? Wait a minute.
Insiders say he believes
Watch
Clive
this.
could still help. Maybe whisper something to the right people, maybe even get a sympathetic ear in Washington.
Trump
the irony?
say what?
Diddy already tried that route. He wrote directly to President Trump, begging for a pardon.
And
Trump himself
said,
confirmed it, saying Diddy sent him a letter but that he had no plans to help.
No plans to help. I had no plans to help from day one. I kept saying that over and over again. I said, man, Trump going pardon Diddy. Y'all don't understand. For real, y'all don't understand how pardons really, really work. And it don't have nothing to do with money. It has something to do with money, but that's not the point I'm talking about.
If the man who once called you a friend won't lift a finger, maybe Clive was supposed to be plan B. So why is Clive panicking now? Maybe because Diddy, stripped of everything, has nothing left to lose, and a memory full of receipts. Remember, Diddy's always played the long game.
He did a whole lot to a whole lot of people, and now he's paying for it. So all these cats, I guess y'all get y'all visitation rights. Some of y'all can get y'all conjugal visits right with him. I don't give
If he truly feels betrayed, he's the type to remind people exactly how much power he once had. There's already talk that he's threatening to take people down with him if he's left rotting in that cell. And if that includes the man who first brought him into the room, Clive Davis, well, that's a headline no one wants to read. People close to Clive describe him as on edge, nervous, even different. He's been declining interviews, cutting down public appearances, keeping things by invitation only. For a man who used to love a microphone, that's telling. And Suge Knight isn't letting up either. On his podcast, he's doubling down, saying, everybody knows what went down in those days. He even drags other names into the mix. Andre Harrell, Russell Simmons, painting a picture of a hidden world of power games and secret alliances, the kind of late-night stuff no one wanted in print. He keeps using the word allegedly, sure, but we can hear the smirk when he says it. The industry's old guard hates this kind of exposure because for decades their control depended on silence. And Clive, he's one of the last survivors from that era. The real sting here is that Clive Davis built his career on credibility. Even when the tabloids swirled around his artists, he always stood above it, the grown-up in the room. Now, with Diddy's downfall dragging his name into the same muck, that polished legacy looks fragile.
Hard to say because there's still such a big question mark in the air because, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, is one of the executive producers on the series. Him, the director, Netflix in general is not saying where they got this footage, only that it was obtained legally. Diddy's side is saying this is coming from a videographer I hired. I know we'll get into the cease and desist. One of the arguments they make is, this is subject to NDAs or agreements that the videographer had signed with Diddy because he was, employed by Diddy.
If Diddy decides to talk, even out of revenge or desperation, Clive could find himself answering questions about things he thought were buried in the 90s. The rumor mill's already churning, deals made behind closed doors, unreported payoffs, and nights that were meant to stay private forever. And the most unsettling part? Nobody's denying it outright. That's what keeps us glued to this story. Every time we think it's cooling off, a new leak hits the web. A new whisper crawls out from the archives. A new insider hints that the connection between Diddy and Clive runs way deeper than people think. Maybe this isn't about scandal at all. Maybe it's about control. Two men who built an empire together now trapped in opposite cages. One literal, one made of reputation. Diddy's cage has bars, Clive's has silence. And as both of them fight to keep their stories from collapsing, we can't help wondering which one's going to break first. The man behind the music, or the myth he's been guarding for half a century. Because if even half of these whispers are true, we're not just talking about an old industry friendship gone sour. We're looking at a decades-long pact built on power, favors, and secrets that no one was supposed to mention again. And now that Diddy's calling from a Brooklyn prison with nothing left but time and anger, the question isn't whether Clive Davis will answer. It's what happens if he doesn't. Maybe the panic isn't about Diddy's name at all. Maybe it's about what that name unlocks. The buried favors, the quiet deals, the forgotten IOUs written in Studio Ink and signed with silence.
Music is unique.
Signed with
Music is
silence.
special. Music has a very individual, meaningful role
That's when
in
he was
society,
young.
not only to youth.
We can't help but feel like Clive Davis isn't just avoiding bad optics. He's dodging a ghost that knows too much. It's as if the entire industry has agreed to pretend their bond was strictly business, even though every whisper says otherwise. Because let's be real, this isn't just about a mentor losing patience with a troubled star. It's about two men who built each other's myth, and now one of them is behind bars while the other is pretending not to hear his calls. That's not strategy. That's fear. We've seen powerful men go into crisis mode before, but nothing like this. Diddy's fall is catastrophic. Lawsuits, criminal convictions, all of it playing out in brutal public view. But what makes this story different is the shadow it casts backward. When Clive first met that cocky 20-something from Uptown Records, Diddy was still just Sean Combs, hustling beats and big dreams. The industry laughed at him, said he was too brash, too street. But Clive, the same man who molded Whitney, Aretha, and Alicia, saw something else. He saw profit, rebellion, and maybe a reflection of his younger self. At the time, hip-hop was still treated like a fad. Diddy convinced Clive it was the future, and together, they turned that gamble into an empire. And now, decades later, the empire looks like it's crumbling from the inside out. We can't ignore how deep the mentorship went. Clive didn't just sign Diddy, he practically created him.
Davis has always assumed a far more active role than most record company presidents. That's why he was a pioneer in the 60s. It's also why he has survived into the 80s.
And then, there's the part nobody wants to say out loud. When Clive came out as bisexual in his memoir years later, it reframed how people saw that mentorship. He spoke
Also, a lot of drugs, y'all. Don't forget that part. There was a lot of drugs being moved within the music industry.
openly about discovering that side of himself during the Studio 54 era, long before Diddy's rise, describing his relationships with both men and women as genuine and loving. But even then, the industry noticed what he didn't say. The timeline, the names, the missing years that seemed to fall into a convenient blur. That's why Suge Knight's explosive podcast claim hit like a grenade. He said Jimmy Iovine once told him Clive and Diddy were lovers. The way Suge said it, half amused, half disgusted, made it sound like something everyone already knew, but no one ever dared confirm. Of course, Clive's camp has never responded to that rumor, but the silence speaks louder than denial. Suge's reputation makes it easy to dismiss him, yet he's never entirely wrong about the things he says.
And her and Clive had a fight 2 days before. And from what I was told, Bobby Christina was present for some of that fight.
Remember, this is the same man who called out Russell Simmons and Andre Harrell, accusing them of their own freaky alliances. He doesn't invent from thin air, he embellishes whispers that already exist. And the more we listen to him, the more we realize how much of that old school power network was built on mutual leverage. Everybody had something on somebody? And if Diddy's sitting in a cell right now with years of memories and nothing left to lose, that makes him the most dangerous person in the room, even from behind bars. People close to Clive describe him as exhausted but sharp, still attending selective meetings but insisting on privacy at all costs. He's told friends he's sick of the gossip, that he's focused on legacy. But then you hear about those private dinners, just a handful of guests, no phones allowed, and the whispers that the conversations circle back to containment. Containment of what, though? We've heard theories that Diddy kept letters, recordings, maybe even photos from the old days. Little pieces of history that could change how people view the entire rise of modern hip-hop. One former Arista staffer claims that when Diddy started pitching Flava in Your Ear and Biggie to Clive, there were moments after meetings where doors stayed closed too long, where the tone went from professional to personal. Maybe that's just creative intensity, or maybe that's where the myth began. We can't ignore the irony. Clive spent decades cleaning up other people's messes. Whitney, Jennifer Hudson, Alicia Keys. He was always the man who knew how to rebuild reputations.
She just said she was in denial on that occasion. And she said it's not as serious as you make out.
But now, his own name is suddenly radioactive in certain circles. Journalists who used to get instant callbacks say his office has gone dark. Industry veterans who once bragged about being invited to his pre-Grammy Gala say this year's event feels tense, sanitized. Diddy used to be everywhere in those photo collages, right beside Clive, smiling like a son next to a proud father. Now, he's erased. The same designer who used to style them both told a friend recently, "It's like they're deleting history in real time." Meanwhile, Diddy's world has collapsed. His home's raided, his assets sold off. Even his beloved matte black jet is gone, sold quietly and re-registered overseas. He's sending letters to powerful people begging for help. Trump himself admitted Diddy wrote to him asking for a pardon, saying, "He asked me for a pardon, but I'm not helping him." That rejection probably stung, but the real heartbreak seems to come from Clive's silence. Diddy's team says he's furious, saying Clive owes him. Owes him what? Protection, loyalty, or something far deeper, something emotional that was never supposed to see daylight. And while Diddy sits in a cell with no pillow and too much time, he's reportedly plotting.
He got let off easy. And don't get me wrong, bro. I don't want to see a black man in jail. I don't want to see a black man in jail. But I don't care nothing about Diddy going to jail.
A friend of his told a podcast last month that he's considering writing everything down, a memoir from prison, a tell all about the real deals behind the glory days. If that's true, Clive has every reason to be terrified, because once words are written, they can't be unsaid. And if Diddy decides to turn the spotlight on the man who gave him his start, every buried story from the 90s could come back with names, dates, and receipts. It wouldn't just stain reputations, it could rewrite the history of modern pop. Some insiders think Clive is already preparing for that. He's been moving assets, reorganizing foundations, shifting management of his archives. On paper, it looks like estate planning, but to those who know him, it feels more like preemptive damage control. One person close to him put it bluntly, Clive's not worried about money. He's worried about legacy. Because if Diddy starts talking, the question becomes not just what Clive knew, but who else was involved. People like Jimmy Iovine, Russell Simmons, maybe even the late Andre Harrell. All those names woven into the same story that turned Uptown and Bad Boy into the soundtrack of the 90s.
Never apparent to me, any meeting I had with her, any interchange I had with her, she was on top of it.
The scariest part is how plausible it all feels. For years, everyone assumed the power in their partnership ran one way. Clive the mentor, Diddy the student. But what if it was mutual blackmail disguised as mentorship? What if Diddy's wild parties and Clive's pristine reputation were two sides of the same coin? One making the mess, the other keeping it profitable. We've heard that phrase whispered more than once lately. They covered for each other. Covered what, though? Deals, favors, private liaisons, maybe even the moments that made the entire industry so loyal to both men for so long. And this is where it all starts to feel like a slow-motion implosion. The empire they built, the music, the artists, the awards, might have been held together by unspoken agreements. Agreements that now, in 2026, are fraying. Diddy's conviction and Clive's nervous retreat aren't separate stories anymore. They're chapters of the same book. It's almost poetic. The student falling, the teacher hiding, the truth knocking on both doors at once. And the more everyone pretends nothing's wrong, the more we sense the pressure building underneath. Because this isn't over. Not even close. So maybe the question isn't whether Clive Davis will ever answer Diddy's calls. Maybe the real question is what happens if he does. Does he risk everything by reconnecting with a man whose downfall could drag him under too? Or does he let the silence grow until it consumes them both? Either way, the next move could change the legacy of two men who shaped an entire era. And if the whispers are true, if even one of those long-buried secrets surfaces, the music industry might never recover. What do you think really went down between Clive Davis and Diddy? Was it mentorship, manipulation, or something we were never meant to know? Drop your thoughts below. We're listening. Until next time, stay curious, stay sharp, and remember, in this business, the silence always means someone's got something to hide.
It sure is funny how Clive act like when the guy was asking him a question, he act like he didn't even know who Diddy was. That's crazy. That was crazy right there, man. Hey, I'm gonna get on up out of here. Y'all take it light, take it slow. Tell him Uncle Mike told you so. Peace out.